in this episode.
Guess what everyone's doing? They're tweeting at them. They're tagging them. And they're tagging a bunch of coaches, not just a specific group of coaches. They're tagging every coach that they possibly can that Twitter will allow them. So like think about it from if you were a coach and you saw that I'm the head coach of University of Michigan, or I'm the head coach of USC, and then I see that all these other schools are tagged on. I'm like, well, why should I care? Like, are you just tagging me to tag,
Right.
or do you actually really want to come to this school? Just like dating, like you're not going to tag every girl and be like, hey, check out my 6-pack abs, and like thinking that you're going to get a date from it. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Understand that, yeah, that's the easy route. And I think that you guys need to do that, but I think it needs to be a little bit more targeted, which causes a lot more work. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. We just got done with our fundraising event, Tiger Up Golf.
Mm-hmm.
I actually participated in it. If you don't know, guys, I'm not a golfer.
He hates
it. I really don't like it. I think, you know what? I actually enjoyed my time out in the golf course yesterday. And the reason I liked it, I think this is why I don't like golf, is because my first experience with golf was with someone who was highly competitive and made it extremely difficult to like the sport. Like they would get super frustrated, they would curse, and then they would throw their clubs, and like they would try to compete with me, and I'm like, bro, I just want to be out on this course. Like there's no one here. It's just me and you, and we're with this course, and you think it's like the PGA Tour right now, and like me and him are friends.
Yeah.
But
Well, we all don't like. I'm a golfer, and I don't like playing with those golfers.
when we're out on the golf course, it's like, I really don't like you. Like, you're not a very pleasant person.
It can bring out some of the worst qualities in people. Let's just put it that way. It's a very humbling sport that takes a lot of time to get remotely decent at.
And what I enjoyed most about it was there was no judgment on like if I shanked a ball or if I totally missed.
Yeah.
It was very like laughable.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, you know
You
how it is.
You had
when
a
someone's-
judgment-free golf group. It was
Yes.
good.
And it was
Scrambles are like that too. I mean, you get 4 people playing, so you don't always have to be the man on every shot. You hopefully have one of your teammates help you out.
Yeah, I mean, even the person I was with let me use his clubs and his golf balls. So I showed up to the course, and then like, you have any clubs? Nope. So how do you think you're gonna play?
Hopes and dreams.
Hopes and dreams. I was thinking about throwing the ball. I was just
I got a fungo in my car. Can I use that?
Yeah. But guys, this episode, what I want to talk about is I've been on maternity leave, quote unquote maternity leave.
He had a kid.
Yeah. No. And one of the best feelings in the world by far. And I was reading a book, surprising, shocking, right? Revelation. But it's called The Perennial Seller, and the book's title is not very conducive in what it actually, like when you first hear it, you're like, oh, it's all about selling. It's not. It's about creativity. It's about producing a product, producing something that lasts forever, perennial, being able to sell on forever because of its good work and what it has inside of it. And what that brought attention to me was on the recruiting scene, and a lot of players get completely frustrated. And we've talked about this in the past. Like, if you haven't listened to Tactical Guides to Recruiting, we've had 3 different episodes on it. But this episode here gave me a little bit more insight on guys are just stressing out a little bit too much. They're thinking that they've got to, like, why wouldn't a coach like me? Like, I batted .400. I had a 1.2 ERA. My strikeout to walk ratio is crazy good. My metrics are off the chart. I throw 89, 91. My exit velo is 99,000. just throwing out these metrics and everything like that. And that stuff is important. Like, don't get me wrong. It's important. I've talked about it in the past, like blast metrics, Rapsodo metrics, hit tracks, you name it, all of the things, all the numbers, right? But no one's going to care if they haven't seen you play. And it's just like the work that I do for the Tigers on the creative side. I've gone from mopping up the floors in our facility to teaching players privately one-on-one to coaching a team to running the high school program to now I'm on the digital side. And on the digital side, I have to create digital pieces of work for people to consume. That's what that's what this podcast is, right? And we're at episode 125. The listenership of this podcast did not happen overnight. It literally when we made the first episode in my head, I was thinking, well, at least I know that Dave and I are going to listen to it.
Sure.
We got 2 listens right there and maybe our wives. So that's 4 listens. Maybe our boss will read it or listen to it. So that's 5. So it's a growing thing. And if you listen to episode 1, it's absolute trash.
Sure.
It's not very good, but I'm going to keep it up because I like going back and listening to that episode because it shows me where my craft has gone from, our craft has gone from point A to point B. And the 125 mark, we're still not where we want to be. Sure. We're still not in front of the ears that we want to be in front of. But it's being able to grind out and create and build and try to build up our skills so that the next 126 is better than 125. And creating your career, and I call it a career because it is a career. You're getting paid to play when you get into college, whether that's funny money from a scholarship or you actually get an NIL deal. You are getting paid to do your work. So understand that it takes years upon years to build up your work to get noticed, just to get noticed. And then from there, that's when it really starts. Just being able to hit a number or hit a target doesn't mean you're gonna get the deal. There's a number of authors out there. Like one of the authors that I'm on right now, his name is Ryan Holiday, and he was VP of marketing for American Apparel, and he ended up writing his first book on marketing, but now he writes on stoicism. He said his first book, he had to build up a base of listenership or readership on an email list to actually get his book in front of people, and that book didn't sell the way that he thought it would sell. Now his books sell like crazy. Mm-hmm. He just came out with a new one called Self-Discipline, and he just crushed it, absolutely crushed it. So thinking that you have the secret sauce or the number that you hit 95 miles an hour and you're like, yep, I'm going to get drafted. I'm going to get recruited. Not necessarily. You still gotta market yourself. You still got to go to big events. You still got to do the other things that other people are doing. And what's happening is your ego is getting in front of you thinking, I've got this number, so everyone's going to come to my door. If you build it, they'll come. That's a great Hollywood line, but it's not reality. It just is not reality. So the tweet that I had and the thread that I put together is that players need to understand marketing. In 2019, 2020, Twitter video was the thing that no one was doing. Mm-hmm. And we came out hard out of the gate and was trying to shout it from the rooftops before anyone else was saying it. No one else was saying it. We were the only people. I wouldn't say only because there's probably some baseball people that we don't know of that were saying it outside of Twitter. But on Twitter, no one was saying it. And we were just banging our fists onto the table and saying, you have to do Twitter video. You have to tag coaches. You have to do this. You have to DM, because all their attention was on Twitter because they had nothing to do and no one was tweeting at them. Now, guess what everyone's doing? They're tweeting at them. They're tagging them, and they're tagging a bunch of coaches, not just a specific group of coaches. They're tagging every coach that they possibly can that Twitter will allow them. So like, think about it from if you were a coach and you saw that I'm the head coach of University of Michigan, or I'm the head coach of USC, and then I see that all these other schools are tagged on. I'm like, well, why should I care? Like, are you just tagging me to tag,
Right.
or do you actually really want to come to this school? Just like dating, like you're not going to tag every girl and be like, hey, check out my 6-pack abs, and like thinking that you're going to get a date from it. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Understand that, yeah, that's the easy route. And I think that you guys need to do that, but I think it needs to be a little bit more targeted, which causes a lot more work.
I think there's a couple things at play here. And I don't know if the recruiting process or platform, if you will, has ever been accelerated like the moment that it is in now. So it's like players and coaches, even on the coaching side, we're constantly discussing it and talking about the nuances that are at play and what the portal is doing to it and the different expectations that we need to be relaying to our players and how to attack the process. I mean, what we say now is different than 6 months ago, which is different than a year ago. So it's constantly evolving. But I also think that players don't do a great job of understanding the entire competition level that is out there that is just like them, who they are competing at for these spots, and then what those players are doing. So, like, I think if you ask an average player or a normal high school athlete who has aspirations of playing at the next level, I think if you ask them, you know, what are you doing to get seen? What are you doing to catch attention of a college coach? I think they'll say the normal stuff to you. Well, I'm playing for a good club. I'm trying to create a presence online. I'll post, you know, highlight videos or showcase videos or, you know, me training videos. I'll try to get that out there for coaches to get seen. I'll go attend some showcases. I might attend a college camp or two. And they're basically just saying the normal things, which 3 years ago, if you did that, you were in the upper echelon of 20% of high school baseball or high school sports athletes. You did more than everyone else.
You got recruited, yeah.
You did more than that. Was way more. Like, you were excelling at that process. You were literally putting yourself out there more than almost every other guy. Because in that point, you know, the idea of getting recruited was sending maybe an email to a coach, one, maybe two, playing for a good club, hoping that they'd show up and see you. That was kind of the notion, right? And there was a ton of schools out watching, and hey, you had a pretty good shot if you were at a good event and you were on the right field, that you'd get seen if you had a good game, right? And then, you know, coaches would network, etc. But now it's changed. Doing those normal things, well, you're looking at 60, 70% of other high school athletes all doing those things. So what is separating you? Because there's a lot of guys hitting 95 off a tee. There's a lot of guys now throwing 90. We just saw a tweet. The interesting thing is one of the biggest pro scouting events in the country happened about 2 weeks ago. It's in Jupiter, Florida. It's the Perfect Game World Wood Bat. And it's a huge pro scouting event. Well, one of the tweets that was out of there from a local scout was like, it's not that cool to throw 90 anymore unless you're left-handed with movement. It's like, dude, if you threw 90 4 years ago, there was every D1 in the world would be knocking on your door. Now you have to prove more. Well, it's the same thing in the recruiting world. It's evolving. The ways to capture attention from a college coach are changing and changing fast, and it's getting harder to. So what I don't think high school players are asking themselves is, what can I be doing that is different than my competition?
Well, what matters? You have to get in front of the coach. You have to get the eyes of the recruiter.
How do you get their attention?
You have to think creatively. You have to be bold. It has to be scary to you.
Well,
2019, 2020, sending a you know how many people called me on that and said, I don't know about that. I don't know. if people are saying, I don't know, or they're scared, that means you should probably do it.
Yeah,
Probably.
because it's different.
It's different.
Yeah, and there's always risk reward to it. I mean, listen, not everything is going to work, but I guarantee putting yourself out there time after time after time is going to give you a better shot than not.
Think about this. Who's calling coaches? Is there anyone that is doing a cold call? Nobody.
Probably not.
Zero. That's scary. That's intimidating. You're getting someone on the other line that you have no idea who they are. How do I start the conversation? Where does the conversation go? That's scary. No one wants to do that because you have the undivided attention of someone that you respect, and you are scared because you don't want to feel rejected.
How many kids, when there's 10 schools behind a field during a game, after that game, how many kids go up and say and introduce themselves to every one of the college coaches over there?
100%. That would, you know what would happen if someone did that?
They'd all probably like laugh and excite me. They'd be like, "This kid's awesome."
Yeah, they would be excited about it.
I guarantee half of them are going to think about whether they remember you from that game or not. They're going to kind of look at your schedule and see where you're at.
Yep, and they're probably going to ask you like, "Hey, how's the weekend going? What's your team
100%.
doing?" That's the separating factor. 10 years ago, no, I'm trying to think about when I played. 2000, no, wow, it's a long time ago. 2008, 2007. I think I've told this story. No one was handwriting letters to college coaches.
Right.
Nobody. Everyone was sending emails. That was the thing. Email, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to send an email. I got no traction whatsoever.
Sure.
I handwritten notes to college coaches, explicitly telling them I would love to see them at my game. I had more college coaches come to our games than the guys that were sending emails. Why? Because that was the thing that no one else was doing.
Well, and it's also when you got to understand that college coaches have seen all this stuff a million times before. Mm-hmm. So, getting a well-written email or seeing something on Twitter, it's not going to grab the attention of them. So it's like, okay, well, they're doing what everyone else is, and if he's really special athletically, then maybe that'll open a door.
Yep.
But doing the things that no one else is willing to do tells you something about a player. It tells you that, say the handwritten note, for example. Well, no one else is going to take the time to do that. So what does that tell me about the player? It might tell me that I'm probably not going to have to worry about him in the weight room because he's going to probably go above and beyond there. Mm-hmm. He's going to be probably a teammate that's going to go above and beyond for his team to win. He's going to be an attention to detail type guy. There's so much that goes into that type of stuff that you don't understand. That's what college coaches are thinking. That's what I'd be thinking. I'd be like, who is this young man that took the time to that probably took him 20, 30 minutes, which today's world, my God, that's an eternity. Right, especially in a young teenager's world. 30 minutes is like, that's a lot. Yeah. So that's telling me that, all right, well, he did enough for me to at least take another look. Maybe it's go watch him in a game. Maybe it's to return that, that written note with something of my own. Maybe it's whatever it might be, or to reach out to his coach because I know that guy, or I know a guy in the area. Can you tell me more about this Spiker Holmes guy? He just sent me an awesome note. I got to know more. You're getting them to the next step because you're being different. That there's a lot of value in that, and especially nowadays, this is something that players and coaches and parents have to know about college coaches. Okay, right now, college coaches can get on their computer at 8 a.m. in the morning and find players from college. They can do that right now. It's after the fall season right now. I'm hearing this is the point when players start to enter the portal because they can transfer at semester, which is an even scarier thing. Guys that were not there in the fall can be there in the spring. And guess what? They can be eligible if they haven't used their 1 year free transfer eligibility. What does that mean for a high school athlete? It means that it's harder to capture their attention. If I can get on a computer, find a 21-year-old kid who is polished, who's thrown 40 innings in college baseball, etc., I'm taking that guy every day over an unproven 17-year-old. Sorry. Unless that 17-year-old does enough to capture my attention to make it worth my while to go see him. And then if he's painting a story like I have to have this dude because he's going to be a difference maker in my program, that's the difference. That is something you have to understand. So where I see a lot of athletes, especially now in the 23 and 24 classes, where they're getting frustrated because the old things that have been told to them that work are not working, they're kind of getting to a point where they're hitting a wall and they're just like, whatever. They're just stopping rather than ask yourself the question, why isn't it working? And what else can I be doing?
They're getting to a point of helplessness. That's what they're getting to, is that whatever they do, they're not getting traction. I mean, we saw that with a couple of guys on our team.
Sure.
They were getting so frustrated that they weren't getting any looks. It's like, no, play the long game, man. Like, play the long game. You might have to go junior college.
Well, sure.
And if your grades and you have a bunch of college credit, maybe junior college isn't for you and you have to settle for a D2 or D3. There's no shame in that.
Sure.
Like, I know that your goal was D1, but it's just not in the cards. And if you think that it is your goal to play Division I, roll the dice. Go to the school that you want to go to and walk on. And if you don't make it that year, guess what? Go back the next year. Try to walk on again.
Right.
Like, you not making the team doesn't mean that you can't continue to pursue the goal that you want to pursue.
Well, that's a whole different level. I mean, a whole different conversation. Since when did a level of play determine your love for baseball? If that's all it is, if it is D1 or bust or this or that, then no offense, you probably don't love the game enough, because it should be at the core root of it.
That's the difference between passion and purpose.
Right.
Passion is fleeting. It's like motivation. It's in and it's out. I can grab motivation and then it can completely go out.
Sure.
But purpose, that's something that will drive you. That's something that will continue to... What it feels like, this is what it feels like. Purpose is like there's something that's gnawing at your brain and you got to get it out. It's something that is trying to, when you wake up, you're like, crap, I got to get into that weight room. I got to get in the cage. That's what it feels like. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to get out of that cage. You will find ways. Here's a really good example. And I hate that I'm mentioning this because Jaws is our boss. But I would have a key to the facility and I would hit late at night. The only reason I worked for Balls and Strikes and doing janitor duties so that I had an ability to get into the cages at night when I needed to get into the cages because
Sure.
I couldn't do it during the day.
Sure.
That's what purpose gets you. That's what purpose drives you. I would break into our high school weight room just to be able to work out because I had a purpose to go accomplish this goal. If you do not have that, it's going to be fleeting. It's going to go away. You're not going to be able to get to the goal. You're not going to be able to get to Division I baseball, Division II, whatever the thing is. It could be outside of baseball. So if you are driven by just the mere fact of I want to go to a party and everyone knows who I am and everyone says, "Oh, he plays at KU." And you're billboarding your stuff and you're peacocking at the party and saying, "Look at me." Like it's like the Great Gatsby. Look at me, I'm all fancy and stuff. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Majority of the guys that play MLB baseball,
It won't last.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. It won't last.
those guys don't want to be noticed.
Yeah.
They don't want to be known. Like John Mozeliak, the GM of the Cardinals, was in Balls and Strikes, and no one knew who he was. And the reason they didn't know who he was because he was dressed a certain way that no one would recognize him. He's driven by purpose. He's trying to figure out how to create the best baseball club. He's not out for the fame. He's not out for being known. He's out there to be the best GM that he possibly can, even though there's some people that might disagree with his choices. but he has a pretty good track record.
Well, and if you go back to the core root of if you're in it for the purpose, then you're going to find ways to capture the attention needed to get recruited. That's what we're coming back to. So here's some actionable advice that I would give a high school athlete currently in the recruiting process, a parent who's helping that athlete go through the process, a coach who's trying to help that athlete navigate the process. Here's some things I would start to think of. You have to understand the college coach, and you have to understand where their attention is. Where can they see you? How can you get in front of them in any which way? Email, social media, text, phone call, college camp, showcase, games, whatever it may be. Where are you going to find a college coach? And how can you get your brand, you, in front of them in every which creative way that makes him or her say, I got to see more. That's all you're trying to do. That's all you're trying to do. Stop trying to think that every single thing you do right now is to get the scholarship. You're just trying to keep that process going until that point comes. Because it might be, if you're a 6'6", 95-mile-per-hour left-hander, it's one touch point and you get a scholarship. For everyone else, it could be 10, 20, 50 different touch points before you get that valuable phone call that says, hey, we'd like to offer you a scholarship to the University of. Okay? So you have to know how to keep that process moving along. So think about it. Think about what your peers are doing. You got to do that. Like, you can't not do it. But then what are they not doing? What are you willing to put yourself out there with? Like the idea of starting a conversation with a coach, introducing yourself to a coach when you see him at a game, shaking their hand, thanking them for coming, sending a handwritten note, going to a college camp with questions that you can ask the guys. Don't just be a follower. Don't just be the guy who shows up to a college camp and does everything the coach says and stays in herds with the other players. Be the guy who's willing to go up to the coach and go, hey, coach, whenever you get a chance, I had like 3 or 4 really important questions about your program and your university that are really important to me. And if you get a chance, I'd love to talk to you about it. Like, do you know what that would do? That would send a college coach through the roof, be like, yes, come on.
But it's being genuine. It's
being genuine.
Being
like,
very genuine. You're not doing it to do it.
Don't come with BS questions like, hey, you won 30 games last year. How are you going to get to 35? Like don't come with
what kind of gear do you get?
Or do you use, what tech do you use? That's fine. Like, it'll be like, literally think about what is important to you about your school choice, your program choice, coaching philosophies, things of that nature. Like, what's worked for you, and bring that type of stuff.
Here's an example. So I was a switch hitter, and I worked extremely hard my 2 years in junior college, because that's when I learned how to switch hit. And every visit I went to, that question, I asked that question. Or when I was talking to a college coach when they were recruiting me at the field, I asked the question of, do you like switch hitters? And it was very evident when coaches were giving me answers, I knew who was real and who was not as real. Like, if shit hit the fan and I was struggling, were you going to pull the cord and say, all right, you're going to bat on the right side, right? So it's like coming up with those types of questions that are personal to you.
Yep.
That's going to, in effect, be more personalized to that coach, and he'll get a kick out of it and he'll enjoy it because it'll give him a stage. Because what they want to do is they want to sell their program. They want people to be inside their program. That's their whole goal. They're representing their university, and they want to talk. And they want to talk about the university.
It's their job. It's their livelihood. Okay. And I'm just telling you, like, whether or not your skill level at that moment is good enough to play for that coach, I guarantee you one thing will come out of that coach will remember your name. There is zero doubt that coach will remember your name. He will go back to his office after that long day at camp, or that long day of watching games, or however you got in front of him from a unique standpoint, and he will be like, man, that was cool. I don't see that very often. At the very least, I'm going to follow that kid. I'm going to remember the name so that the next time I see it, I'll be like, yeah, that was the guy I really liked to camp that day. That was the guy that That's a mature young man. That's a guy who's going to go places. And again, whether you got to understand, it's a very small community, and all the coaches know each other at all different levels, and the network effect is a real thing. And to where all of a sudden you may not be a fit for him, but you've done the due diligence to try to put yourself out there, and he knows that his friend John down a couple levels down that's working his butt off to get to the next level, he has a need at shortstop, and he remembers you from camp. I guarantee you he's calling him. I guarantee you. It's how that works. But you have to be willing to differentiate yourself, because if you're not, you are just a number. I can't say it any other way. You're just another one of thousands upon thousands of young athletes trying to get to the next level. Not everyone does. Remember that.
We were going to talk about this in the next episode, but I think it's very evident to this one. And you mentioned touch points on, well, the 6'7" guy who throws 93 just needs one touch point, right?
Yep.
And then a guy that's 6 foot like me, 180, and throws decently hard and can hit a little bit, it needs more touch points, right? But the argument is that the mountain of the goal seems very big, seems like stratosphere. Like a freshman in high school and looking at college and looking at these 22-year-olds, or some of them 23, you're like, oh my gosh, that's like a mountain of a task. How do I get there?
That's the point.
You have to break it down. You have to go back to first principles, where you have to go down to what's the first thing that you have to do. It's just like hitting. If you're in a slump, what's the first thing that you have to do? Well, change your body angle, change this angle, make sure that you have a higher leg kick. No, it's none of that. It's going back to, I have to see the ball. If I can't see the ball, I'm not going to hit it. And then from there, then I have to see it hit the bat. Attacking a massive goal, a mountain of a task, it's about brick by brick, one conversation after one. It's going to the field one time after another, and then being able to produce a result and building on that result. Like your 60 time when you're a freshman is not going to be your 60 time that you're going to be in a senior in high school. You might run a 7.5, but then when you're in senior in high school, you might run a 6.8. It's attacking it. It's just going one workout at a time, one day at a time, one conversation at a time, one email, one text, one phone call. And then you start figuring out your pace. Like the first time you go up to a college coach and you shake your hand, guess what? You're going to suck at it.
And you're going to be nervous.
You're going to be nervous. You're not going to know what to say. You're going to jumble over your words, but the action of actually doing it, you're going to learn so much at that given point that you're going to be able to stack the skills, reassess, and address, oh, okay, this is what I did. This is how nervous I was. I wasn't reading his body language. I actually wasn't listening to what he was saying. I was more in my head trying to figure out what I wanted to say and didn't really have a good conversation with him, and I didn't really give off a good first impression. The only way you do that and get better at it is actually doing it.
And you have to understand that the process is meant to be very difficult. It weeds out the people that aren't meant to be there. That's just the cold, hard facts of it. The world that we live in today does a poor job of preparing, in our situation, young athletes to tackle that process. Because in the world today, you're used to getting your way now. You're used to everything being a little bit easier. You got a phone that can tell you anything you want in a moment's notice. Adversity is not a thing that young people are used to having to tackle over and over and over again. So that's the beauty. As I might sound like a hardened old coach here, but that's the beauty of the recruiting process. That for 99% of you, you are going to have to continually work at it. You're more in that 50 to 100 touch points, guys, in order to just get the attention of a college coach enough to maybe come watch you.
if there's a barrier to entry, that's worth pursuing. If there's a barrier to entry, that is worth pursuing. And one of my favorite quotes from Marcus Aurelius, because I'm in a Marcus Aurelius type of like funk right now and like really digging into like the Stoics. But he says, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So whatever's in the way becomes the way. You have to go towards that obstacle, towards that barrier, towards that thing that seems scary, the thing that makes you nervous. If everyone's doing it, it's not worth pursuing. It just isn't. Like you're just doing. Like you're sending a Twitter video because you saw Jimmy send out a Twitter video. Well, where were you in 2019, 2020? You didn't believe us. You said that feels uncomfortable. That doesn't feel right. Are you sure about that? If you're asking those questions, guess what? That's probably the thing that you should go after.
Probably
is the key word. Just assess it. Think about it.
What's the worst that can happen?
That's true. What is the worst that can happen? What's your perception of it? There's so many things when it comes down to this, guys, is that if there's an obstacle, attack it. Don't think, just attack it. Go forward and then assess from there. You got anything else on this topic?
I'm good.
Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms. Across from me is David Burkby. Please give us a subscribe. You can watch this on Spotify and YouTube. You can only listen to this on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, see ya.
See ya.